and welcome to another episode of
Sociology Today.
This week we're going to look at how we can implement authentic liberalisation within the health and physical education environment,
The demographics found within the Tasmanian classrooms and the Norwood area.
and how we can ensure that our students remain
Active for life. So Jack, which group of students does this learning sequence apply to?
Well, Dylan, the lesson aligns directly with the Australian curriculum. The content descriptors from a Year 7-8 health and physical education context. The description is students practice, apply and transfer movement concepts and strategies. So Dylan, the 4 lessons, what will they focus on?
The unit in which the 4 lessons will focus on will be on invasion games. Invasion games are sports which involve one team trying to score in the opposition's end zone or goal, whilst also defending their own goal. These can be sports such as basketball, football, netball, just to name a few.
So these sports seem like really open-ended sports with lots of variabilities and where strategy can possibly really be an advantage to teams.
Yes, indeed they are. How can we relate invasion games to a sociological perspective?
The delivery of the invasion subject can be enhanced by looking at it from a sociological perspective. So Dylan, in the past, a sociological perspective may have been overlooked, which has resulted in the HPE pedagogy remaining unchanged for the last 20 years. In the past, students have been supplied with information by the teacher, and students are simply expected to remember the content that has been delivered rather than think for themselves. This suggests that the students know nothing and that the teacher knows everything. The teacher is the subject within the learning process, and the students are simply objects. Freire refers to this as pedagogy for the oppressed.
So what you're saying is, Jack, that the health and physical education pedagogy is just simply outdated.
Yeah, certainly. That's right.
As educators, we can enhance the learning process by adopting authentic liberalisation approach. Freire states that authentic liberation nurtures a setting that empowers the student to think and strategise for themselves within society and the world. Through this approach, students don't become objects within the classroom, but instead take control of their learning and develop themselves as learners.
So Freire believes that authentic liberalisation empowers students to strategise for themselves. Do you think that students can utilise this skill for remaining active for life?
Oh, they certainly can, Jack.
So Dylan, would you mind taking us through what the first lesson will look like?
Certainly, Jack. The first lesson will consist of playing a game rich in strategy, which is Run the Gauntlet. Run the Gauntlet requires students to critically evaluate and derive their own strategies, both as an individual and as a team. Being an invasion game, the structure of the game consists of 2 opposing teams. Students will play the game, and once the game finishes, a class discussion will take place surrounding what strategy is and how we can use strategy to get that advantage. Students will then break into their teams again and asked to come up with their own strategies. At the end of the lesson, there will be a class reflection about how we can think for ourselves and use strategy, then we can gain an advantage. So Jack, give us a brief overview of the second and third lesson.
Well Dylan, the second and third lessons will further extend the students' ability to develop their own strategies. The amount of variability within the games will be increased by gradually removing the amount of scaffolding and increasing the complexity of the games. This will increase the authentic liberalisation and extend the students' ability to critically evaluate situations, both within a health and physical education context and later remaining active for life.
This last lesson will allow the students to transfer their new knowledge. Students need to be ready to face an ever-changing environment, and exposing them to games such as Ultimate Survivor will be beneficial. There are so many variables which students both do and do not have control of. Once again, the game is played in teams, which gives students the opportunity to put into practice everything that they have learned over the previous lessons. The strategies the teams have developed should be more elaborate and flexible than before the unit of invasion began.
So what you're trying to do is further extend the students' knowledge so that they can take the skills they've learned from inside the school environment and take this outside with them and later remain active in life.
Certainly, Jack.
We'll now cross to Tom and George, who will talk about the teaching standards and the demographics.
Thanks Dylan and Jack. Today I'm here with Dr Edmondson and we're going to be discussing the standards that teachers need to take into consideration when planning a lesson.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, there are a number of standards that teachers need to take into consideration when planning a lesson. These standards can be derived from the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, focusing on 3 main competencies. The first identifies the physical, social and intellectual development and characteristics of students which are an underlying factor into the professional knowledge of these teachers. The first competency being directed at physical, social and intellectual development, we can see that these planned lessons have taken into account the importance of the environment and the particular demographics of the Norwood area. Statistics of this area, previously taken in 2011, show that approximately 9.8% of people aged 0 to 17 in Tasmania have a disability of some kind, and 95% of this special population attend a public or mainstream school such as Norwood Primary School. This is a particularly important factor for teachers to take into consideration as catering for these students' needs and to maintain the curriculum standards. So Tom, can you tell us about competency number 1.3?
Certainly, George. Competency 1.3 discusses the diverse linguistic, cultural, religious and socio-economic backgrounds that students come from. In relation to the lesson plans, we need to take into account these factors in order to create a proficient and successful lesson. Teachers in a professional environment need to take into consideration factors such as cultural beliefs and language barriers. They need to be able to differentiate students and alter their methods to better student learning and, as you said before, George, to maintain curriculum standards. For example, teachers at Norwood can use statistics such as 404 of 3,656 residents being born overseas in their teaching and planning. Alright George, would you like to take us through the last standard that needs to be considered when planning a lesson?
Certainly, Tom. Competency 1.5 addresses teachers and their ability to differentiate learning to meet the specific needs of students across the full range of abilities. As stated before, it is crucial for teachers to specify their teaching methods directed at the students' needs in particular. AICSL states on their website that it is expected of these teachers to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the strategies required to meet the needs of these students and to create a standard that is Australian-wide. Teachers should use these competencies as a guideline to ensure that their approach to planning lessons remains consistent Australian-wide.
So in conclusion, we can see that health and physical education pedagogy has remained unchanged for the last 20 years and so it is outdated. By introducing ideas such as authentic liberalisation, we can modernise the health and physical education pedagogy and hopefully instil habits into our students which encourages them to remain
active for life.